And Pudding said, "Look, when we tested Burevestnik and Poseidon, there were some NATO ships loitering around, so we wanted them to see it. And no wonder it's total thunderous silence coming from NATO stuff. You know, it's not my accent. They don't even know what that is. You know? So it's really something from outer. It's like a meteorite from outer space. And of course the Khabarovsk nuclear submarines, which can deliver numbers vary, but at least 6 positals, all that in less than 1 year. And Putin said, look, this is just the beginning. There's much more coming of the development of Ereshnik. You know, building a collection of Ereshnik Sarmat, you name it. Putin didn't test those weapons to keep them secret. He wanted NATO to see them. That's the flex. These aren't missiles. They're a message. Dear Vestnik Poseidon, systems that don't just challenge NATO, they bypass everything NATO has built for decades. And that silence from NATO, that's not diplomacy, that's shock. Power isn't always about firing. Sometimes it's just letting your opponent watch what you're capable of. So, is this an ostentatious demonstration of force? No, it's Russia doing what he has to do to protect Russian lands. And of course, it should be interpreted by adversaries and enemies as, don't mess with the bear. You have no idea. In fact, you won't even see what hit you. You won't survive it. For that matter, Putin's not showing off. He's sending a warning. Don't mess with the bear. Not bluster, not theater. Real capability. Invisible strike. No comeback. Translation, deterrence, not drama. Stay out, or you won't even know what hit you. And of course, we're still going to have that gaggle of imbecile saying the Russians are bluffing. We need to test them. Let's provoke them a little bit more. Well, one day, they're going to get it. Lots of people have written volumes on Putin's patience or Putin's refusal to inflict something really hardcore on, especially on NATO. There is a debate in high levels of power in Russia about all that. But they won't deviate from their overall strategy, modernizing their hypersonic and nuclear arsenal way beyond anybody else. And of course, if there is any sort of attack against Russia, that's it. They have all it takes. What this tells the global south, that's a long discussion. For instance, the Chinese got the picture years ago, and they are modernizing their armed forces at breakneck speed. They're still far away from Russia in terms of missiles and hypersonics, nuclear, etc. But they have what it takes to be at least close to Russia in a matter of years. You know, every empire makes the same mistake. They confuse patience with weakness. Russia has been warning, signaling, demonstrating, and still the West says they're bluffing. That's not strategy. That's denial. While NATO debates narratives, Russia and China are building capability. At some point, reality hits harder than rhetoric, and the global south as a whole. You look at Russia as, wow, okay, if anything happens, maybe we can count on Russia to shield us from direct attacks. That opens another can of worms, because we don't know, and for instance, a true test of how far Russia would go would be a direct attack on Venezuela. We still don't know how Russia would react. There is a strategic deal between Caracas and Moscow. Moscow already sent a lot of stuff to Caracas and will continue to send more. Same as Moscow sent a lot of very interesting stuff to Threat, and the Chinese also did the same thing. So, does this mean that if there is a next direct Israeli-American attack against Iran, Russia and China will be directly involved? We don't know. The global south sees something the West refuses to admit. Russia isn't just defending itself. It's proving it can protect others. And that changes the world map. Because when countries start thinking if we're attacked, Russia might shield us. The balance of power shifts. Meanwhile, Washington plays guessing games. Moscow and Beijing play long-term strategy. Nobody knows how far Russia will go, and that uncertainty is the power. even though there are strategic partnerships. So in fact, Russia is being tested severely, especially in these two fronts in the Sahel as well. If there is a destabilization of Mali, Russia will have to do something to help Mali, because the alliance of SA states, they have a close relationship with Moscow. So the provocations never stop, IMA, and of course the Russian leadership, they know that, and they have to be very, very measured, forceful, and at the same time, they need to be incisive enough if their interests are directly attacked. For instance, what happened in Syria? That's a very, very complicated discussion that Russia abandoned Syria. No, Russia saw where this thing was going, from Idlib to Aleppo, northern and Syria. They knew the mood in the armed forces. They knew that people were being bribed in the armed forces, so they had to adapt. They could not intervene even if Assad himself was not able to intervene or to defend his position. So now what Russia is doing, they are making the best of what they already have, which their presence in the Eastern Mediterranean. They won't lose that from the beginning. They talked to the head shopper and said, look, we're not leaving our bases, and now it's in the interest of the head shopper to have Russia over there in this western part of Syria. For all practical purposes, we all know Syria is being carved up. Turks in the north, Americans in the northeast, Israel in the south, Russia in the west. And there's that little Syria that will be managed by the head shopper and his fellows. We don't know how long this thing is going to last. If it's going to be effective, probably not. But from the Russian strategic point of view of we are in the Eastern Mediterranean and we're not leaving it, works for them. Okay, I understand the criticism. I understand the horror of people who have been defending Syria for over 10 years. But that's not how a real politic works. Russia isn't trying to save the world. It's protecting positions, not emotions. People say Russia abandoned Syria. No, Russia adapted. Real politics isn't about loyalty. It's about leverage. Hold ground, keep access, maintain influence. In the West, strategy means reaction. For Russia, strategy means patience plus permanence. They don't need to control everything. They just need to never leave. The question would be, has Western sanctions ironically fueled a Russian tech renaissance? No, this was already going on, Nima. Let's say it accelerated at least the effort to be totally self-sufficient, which is something that the Chinese are doing in their, I would say, direct, indirect tech war against US. The Chinese objective in the long run is the same as Russia, to be totally self-sufficient. That Russian passenger jet, 100% Russian, no, they don't need anything from Boeing or from Airbus or whatever, you know? And on their hypersonic nuclear program even more, because this is a matter of national, very, very hardcore national security. So you have to be totally self-sufficient. But I would say the stupidity of the sanctions tsunami only accelerated a process that was already there. The West thought sanctions would Russia. Instead, they push Russia into self-reliance. You don't weaken a nation by forcing it to innovate. You accelerate its independence. Sanctions didn't break Russia. They broke the illusion that Russia needed the West. But of course, we forgot to mention those chips from washing machines. They perform miracles, don't they? Poor Europeans. What? Pepe Putin says that these new weapons will ensure strategic parity for the whole 21st century. Well, did you see that? He actually said the whole 21st century.
Yeah, this means that the scientists told him, look, we are so far ahead of the Americas and everybody else, and we're going to continue on the same rhythm. So we will always be at least 2, if not 3 generations ahead of anybody else for the rest of the century. He's basically quoting his scientists. Yeah, Exactly. And is it when it comes to your understanding, what's going on is parity even the goal anymore? Or is it about deterrence through unpredictability? It's about no holds barred deterrence. Deterrence to a point that anybody, the only ones who have the capability to do such will be the Americans. They'll have to think, an eternity in a minute before doing anything stupid against the Russian Federation. It's when you have a top-of-the-line deterrence that nobody else has. This is what they're thinking, and they have already achieved it in practice, and they're still working on it. Yeah, this means that the scientists told him, look, we are so far ahead of the Americas and everybody else, and we're going to continue on the same rhythm. So we will always be at least 2, if not 3 generations ahead of anybody else for the rest of the century. He's basically quoting his scientists. Yeah, exactly. And is it when it comes to your understanding what's going on? Is parity even the goal anymore? Or is it about deterrence through unpredictability? It's about no holds barred deterrence. Deterrence to a point that anybody, the only ones who have the capability to do such will be the Americans. They'll have to think, an eternity in a minute before doing anything stupid against the Russian Federation. It's when you have a top-of-the-line deterrence that nobody else has. This is what they're thinking, and they have already achieved it in practice, and they're still working on it. There will be new Budasniks and new Orsnik coming. It's very, very impressive from a scientific point of view. It's immensely impressive. Immensely impressive. The West mocked Russia chips from washing machines. Remember? Meanwhile, Russia quietly jumps 2 generations ahead. This isn't about parity anymore. It's about deterrence through unpredictability. When one side has weapons no one else can match, the message becomes simple. Before you act, think in eternity. In A, there will be new Bsisniks and new Orisnik coming. It's very, very impressive from a scientific point of view. It's immensely impressive. Immensely impressive. The West mocked Russia chips from washing machines. Remember? Meanwhile, Russia quietly jumped 2 generations ahead. This isn't about parity anymore. It's about deterrence through unpredictability. When one side has weapons no one else can match, the message becomes simple. Before you act, think an eternity. In A,